this is supposed to be the Republican case for impeachment? I mean, at this point, we should be investigating the investigation for the ethical conduct that is happening on the Republican side of the aisle.
Hollywood produced a movie a number of years back called Idiocracy. And it envisioned a future in the United States of America where the country was run by pro wrestlers and morons, and we're here. Well, happy Friday, and welcome back once again. So we had a little climate change. Got a little climate. It's cooler than usual right now, which is climate change. If it were warmer than usual, it would be global warming. The Democrat Party controls the levers of the climate. Every bad weather day belongs to them. I blame them. Who doesn't? Joe Biden came out yesterday. You know, he's the great uniter. And they put out an ad. You see their new ad? Got a picture of him hugging Colin Powell, sitting with Ronald Reagan, saying, see, I talk to Republicans, at least in the mid-20th century. I talked to Republicans. Who else? John McCain. I had John McCain. Recently, Joe Biden was in Hanoi, North Vietnam. I still call it North Vietnam. Where Hanoi Jane earned her nickname, because she's a commie and a mainstream Democrat and always has been. And it's just fine. But Joe Biden, he went and he visited the White House told us it was a monument, a memorial to John McCain and where he had been shot down. That was a lie, of course. It was a monument memorializing the people that shot down John McCain. I've been to that memorial in Hanoi in North Vietnam, but never mind that. And now Joe Biden, they've got a fake ad. The ad is a big lie that he's some kind of a uniter or something. But then he was in Tempe, Arizona, and he didn't go to the border because he didn't want to go to the border. He's blown up the border. It's on fire. Everybody there, it's like Rome. There are people hanging from trees for as far as the eye can see. And then, of course, the underwear trees from all the, children and all that stuff being sexually assaulted because the Democrats have a plan for America. And they never said it would benefit us. The fundamental transformation of America. And don't forget to teach your kids to speak Spanish because the Democrats have a plan. And maybe join a gang. And there was a Republican member of Congress was down there yesterday. And AOC was attacking him for being down at the border. You see this? She is as dumb as a manzanita stump. The manzanita stump is dumber than an oak stump. And she is quite amazing. But a Republican member of Congress down at the border yesterday. And who did he meet up with? Elon Musk. Did you see Elon Musk at the U.S.-Mexico border yesterday? He looked like Billy Jack. You see him? He had a Billy Jack thing going. Had the big black wide-brimmed hat, kind of like a cowboy hat, but more Billy Jack style. And aviator shades, kind of like Joe Biden wears everywhere because he's like a Sandinista. But Elon Musk at the border, and he's talking to this Republican member of Congress, and they are discussing the people flowing across our southern border, flowing across our southern border. And Sebastian Gorka just texted me, are you insulting the honor of pro wrestlers when I talked about the idiocracy? I didn't mean to. You're right, Sebastian. It's a little unfair to pro wrestlers to compare the current batch of Democrats to pro wrestling, which is, by comparison, certainly an honorable profession. But Elon Musk down there, and he's talking to a Republican member of Congress, and it's good stuff. And they're talking about the people flowing across their our border, from there to here, and it's kind of an amazing story because they got these guys, Congressman Tony Gonzalez, and the murderers crossing our border. Well, how can you tell they're murderers? Well, they have the tattoos on their faces of the teardrops coming down from their eyes down their face, which is with the Mexican cartels. You get those when you murder people. So you get the teardrops after you murder the people, and they're flowing across our border to murder again because the Democrats want more murder because they're not liberals. They're the left, and the left kills everyone, destroys everything, and steals what's left. They're the left. They're not liberals. Anybody have any awareness of the 20th century? Because it's still on, and the Democrats represent the Soviet Union and Pol Pot and Castro's Cuba. They love Castro's Cuba. They hate the United States of America. They are the Democrat Party. Pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. So Joe Biden demonizing those terrible, awful MAGA Republicans who are here to destroy democracy. He says while Democrats are looting and flattening Philadelphia again because the Democrat Party is a mob of violent criminals from coast to coast. And they're kind of irrepressible, aren't they, Michael? It's hard to stop them. But you might start with fire hoses because, the looting and the sacking. But they got loot, lemon again. You see, they got loot, lemon. I guess there wasn't a Louis Vuitton in Philadelphia, probably pulled out already. Otherwise, they certainly would have looted Louis Vuitton. You know how they love those Louis Vuitton bags. And they steal them every chance they got. They steal them in large quantities so they can sell them on tables on the sidewalk and give them to people who have no idea what their actual value is. They know the price of everything and the value of nothing. The looters, And you see, we got our meatball. We got an update on meatball, too. I've been talking to you about meatball the last couple of days, the Democrat looter criminal who was rallying people to the looting effort in Philadelphia the last couple of nights. And Meatball was arrested, and she was charged. She's a Democrat Party activist. They're probably going to run her for office, don't you think? She may be on the city council. Maybe the U.S. Congress is the place for her. We already have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Maybe Meatball could sit next to her. And, speaking of insurrections, did you see a gang of environmental lunatics with mental illnesses moved into Speaker Kevin McCarthy's office yesterday with big signs about the weather? And they're covered in goth makeup, and they're genderless, and they're criminals. And interestingly, the media applauds this and said, "Oh, look, leftists invaded the Capitol and took over the Speaker's office. Isn't this great? They should probably get the Nobel Peace Prize or the Presidential Medal of Freedom because Democrat violence is the good kind of violence." Oh, and I looked at my Washington Post today, speaking of Democrat violence being the good kind of violence. And it's not on the front page because they don't want to talk too much about this. But it turns out there are even more murders. There have been even more murders in Washington, D.C. than I was sharing with you yesterday. We broke the 200 murder threshold this year, earlier than we have in any year since 1997. And so 26 years ago. And now, hey, wait a minute, we forgot to count these murders. 2 infants on D.C.'s list of homicide omissions. They have homicide omissions. That's because we left it to the Democrats to count, and they don't really care about human life at all. So police release info about 8 cases of previously unreported killings, including 2 infants found dead or dying in their D.C. homes. And it turns out that they're murders. And one was an 88-year-old man who had injury because a Democrat got into an argument with the 88-year-old man, so he murdered him. And then another 61-year-old man fatally beaten to death with an 8-foot wooden board. But they hadn't been counted among the murders. So now we've got more murders than we thought we had. And here's the crazy thing. The number went from 201 murders to 209 murders so far this year. And every single one of them a Democrat, the murderers. It's amazing. Not a single MAGA hat-wearing extremist among them. Not a white supremacist among them. Not a one. Now, it's the FBI director told us the biggest threat is white supremacists, right? And Joe Biden told us again yesterday that MAGA extremists are the biggest threat to our democracy. And then they murdered another 209 people and looted another city and attacked the police and defunded the police and opened our border to let the teardrop killers from the cartels into the country to kill again. Just like the Brazilian that was captured in New Hampshire after having been convicted of murdering 11 people in a massacre in Brazil as a military policeman, and there he is working at somebody's house in New Hampshire. You know why? Because of the Democrats. That's why. And then, of course, the Brazilian murderer who's wanted for murder in Brazil, who came to the United States and then murdered the woman in Pennsylvania by stabbing her 38 times in front of her two little girls, and then went on the lam after he escaped, doing that spider crawl. And he was on the loose for 2 weeks, and then he was captured by the police, who the Democrats want to defund because they love murder and hate the police. So just scratching the surface on today's Democrat Party news here, because there's plenty more where that came from, too. And, of course, the Biden impeachment hearing began yesterday, and I've got a whole bunch of audio for you from that impeachment hearing. Was anyone murdered during the hearing by the Democrats, Michael? Any shots fired? And again, we got these left-wing lunatics occupying the Speaker's office yesterday, which is an insurrection. It's a revolt against the established authority, insurrection. And it's the Speaker's office, and there will be no 22-year prison sentences for the left-wing radical environmental activists that occupied the Speaker's office in the Congress. But pay no attention. Oh, and a lunatic environmentalist showed up at the Tempe, Arizona Joe Biden speech, where he demonized 70 million Americans or more, and I'm waiting for him to order that the military fire on Fort Sumter. I think we're going to have his, that Joe Biden's Secret Service code name is Jefferson Davis. Did you know that his Secret Service code name is Jefferson Davis? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Because, the Democrats, they gave us the Civil War in 1861, and now we're in an uncivil war with the Democrat Party while they loot and burn and attack the police, and they invade the Capitol and take the Speaker's office, and the Washington Post applauds because the Washington Post is filthy, dirty, rotten, corrupt. But the impeachment, Joe Biden, because of all the tens of millions of dollars that have flowed into and all the Democrats think this is great because they want to cash in too, because in their hearts, they're criminals. Isn't that true? That seems to be true. And Joe Biden, with the tens of millions of dollars flowing into the Biden family coffers from Ukraine and Uzbekistan and Romania and Russia, and the widow of the Moscow mayor, who is a pal of Putin's, and then the Chinese communists with millions of dollars sending the money to Joe Biden's home address because Hunter lived there. That was his address on his driver's license because he's such a crackhead, stripper knocker-upper, Russian hooker dater that he was living in Dad's house when he's 50 years old because he's the biggest loser in the history of the, but he did make tens of millions of dollars. He explained to his daughter he had to, give half of that over to Joe so he could buy big houses on the water and, get that 67 Corvette. When did he buy that 67 Corvette? And do they send him Ray-Bans? Do they send him boxes full of Ray-Bans? Because, I know there's payoff going on there too. Presidents don't go around wearing Ray-Ban aviators, and the Bidens don't unless they're getting paid for it. That's how crooked they are. But in the impeachment hearing yesterday, a bunch of dastardly crooked Democrats are going on and on about how there's no evidence. There's no evidence. And do-rag was back. He took off the do-rag, and you know what was exposed? Plugs. That's what happened. I know he had been going through cancer treatments, but after chemo, your hair grows back normally. But you can go ahead and get plugs if you're a Democrat in the House of Representatives, and then wear a do-rag like a pirate for months, because arr! And he stormed the hearing room yesterday, swinging in on a curtain with a sword in one hand. But that's another thing altogether. And so the first hearing yesterday, the Democrats are in a deep state of denial. And then did they loot? Did they loot anything, the Democrats, Michael, before they left the hearing room? So we know how they love to loot. There is no evidence at all, never mind the FBI whistleblowers, the IRS whistleblowers, the Ukrainian whistleblower, never mind the CEOs of the Biden corporations, explaining that big guy gets 10% from the Chinese. Now, pay no attention to any of this. The Democrats insist there's no evidence. They're like O.J. Simpson, really. The Democrats today are searching golf courses across America, looking for the real bribery, because they are the O.J. Simpson of American politics, the whole gang. Yeah, and those MAGA people, grave threat to democracy. Stop looting, stop shooting people, Democrats. And Meatball, I got to update you on Meatball because she's pretty funny. She doesn't know it. She's pretty funny. And I suspect the Democrats may actually run her for office because they love crime. You know, they love crime. CNN's ratings, not so good, not very good. And Lurch, Frankenstein, had to wear a suit, onto the Senate floor yesterday. He had to wear men's clothes because there's a new rule. And he's kind of and the Democrats, they're very upset about it. They say it's anti-transgender that Fetterman had to wear a suit. He still looked like Boris Karloff, though. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Of course, Joe Biden didn't go to the border yesterday. Elon Musk did. And I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk came up with a plan in one day and said, let's do this. And if it wouldn't fix it, lickety-split, as Chaz Bono says. Let's go to the Diane Feinstein. We have some Diane Feinstein for you today, too, who died this morning, or we learned this morning at the age of 90. And now the Democrat Party's mad dash for the power that her seat represents is underway. It's like a horrible Hollywood movie all over again. It's like it's a mad world. And instead of the pot of gold, they want her Senate seat. Maybe Gavin Newsom will declare himself to be a woman of color. He could become a woman of color, right? And declare himself to be LGBTQ or one or two of those. And then he could appoint himself to the seat, right? As the interim senator. And he'd be governor and senator. He could be governor and senator. You know, like Mordecai in High Plains Drifter. He was the sheriff and the mayor. The sheriff and the mayor. Is that obscure enough? And hey, Mordecai, you're the sheriff and the mayor. And he could become the governor and the senator. And then they'll have an election next year and see what happens. But Gavin Newsom, I believe the process is that Gavin Newsom will appoint an interim senator. And he's already promised, because they're racists, the Democrat Party, that they will appoint a woman of color. It has to be a woman and a woman of color. Could be transgender. And maybe Katie Hobbs could declare herself to be a woman of color. Maybe, what's her name? Karen Bass could take the job for a while. Yeah, the mad scramble with the passing of 90-year-old Senator Diane Feinstein from California. The mad scramble for the power. These people are really sick, but they love those jobs. These must be the greatest jobs in the world. You know, nobody leaves them unless you pry them out of there with a crowbar. Everybody wants to die in place. Must be a great job. You get the staff, you get, a driver. Remember, she had that Chinese spy driver for 20 years on her staff in the San Francisco office who wired the car in the office so the Chinese Communist intelligence services could listen in on everything and the phones and all the good stuff. But that's okay. When you're a Democrat, you hire a Chinese spy for 20 years, that's okay. Like Eric Swalwell having a sexual relationship for how long? A decade or so with the Chinese spy Fang Fang. And it's not even a news story. That's not even a thing. He's reelected handily again and again. No problem. Fang Fang? Sure. Most California voters would go down that road too. So they vote for Eric Swalwell, and they vote for Fang Fang. A vote for Eric Swalwell is a vote for Fang Fang. And for the Chinese intelligence services, the Chinese intelligence services ushered Eric Swalwell from a city council seat to the House of Representatives and the U.S. Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, Washington, D.C. And that's all fine. That's all fine. Because, Democrats, pretty amazing stuff, got to say. And I do want to play some audio for you. Senator Diane Feinstein's office was invaded by insurrectionists in 2019 who were being used by their little children. Because, the Democrats, the left, they love to use children. They walk them out into the battlefield to find the landmines with their feet. The Soviets did that. And the left here, they use children. They pretend they have these children that are prophets, right? Like, Greta von Thunberg, right, who's the prophet of doom on the climate apocalypse, right? And the teenage gun guy from Florida, he's one of the heroes of the anti-Second Amendment movement, and they just love using children, and then when they're done with them, they kick them to the curb. But they, the last couple of years, the Democrats have been pulling children to the teachers' unions, pulling children out of school and marching them for Black Lives Matter and, support Planned Parenthood. So you could exterminate 400 out of every 1,000 black pregnancies, terminate them. And David Hogg. I've been trying to forget him, and it kind of worked. Sort of worked a little, which is good. Amazing stuff. So, And I want to play that. It's Diane Feinstein. It's sad. She was not, other than having a Chinese spy on her staff in her San Francisco district office for 20 years, for 2 decades, which the FBI finally got around to quietly letting her know about. Oh, by the way, the staff guys, you're very open-minded for hiring a Chinese guy, and turns out he's an intelligence officer for the Chinese Communist Party. But pay no attention. We'll just quietly sweep it under the rug like the Hunter Biden investigations because, we're the FBI. And what else did they told Facebook and Twitter to not let people share those stories that might have been harmful to the Biden presidential campaign in 2020. But pay no attention to that. That's fine. The FBI. It's you know that the official language of the FBI is now Russian. Did you know that? That's kind of weird, isn't it? All right, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Scott calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Scott, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Given how California is a modern-day Roman circus, I think Gavin Newsom should appoint a horse to the Senate.
Very good. That's a Caligula reference. The Emperor Caligula appointed to the Roman Senate, appointed a horse just to show that he had the power to do it. That is a funny and great historical reference, Scott. I appreciate that.
Let me ask you this. Does Gavin Newsom think this is his blanking golden ticket, this appointment? Right,
exactly. Illinois. Who was that? That was Blagojevich. Was Blagojevich, right?
Yes.
When Barack Obama became president, vacated his Senate seat, then Democrat Governor Rod
Jackson Jr. wanted it.
And it's my golden ticket. That's right. These are commodities. These seats are commodities that the Democrats trade like baseball cards.
Yes, indeed. Chris, I wanted to ask you this about Joe Biden's beach house, multi-million-dollar beach house.
Uh-huh.
And this Trump was, the judge ruled yesterday in New York about him inflating the value of his real estate. I'd like to see Joe Biden's mortgage paperwork. Now, he may have paid for the house in cash, several $1 million, given that he had a lot of cash, but did he inflate his civil servant salary? Did he do any paperwork shenanigans when he applied for a mortgage or through a bank? Did he violate any of those laws? We really need to, go on offense here and start examining him the way that Trump is being examined.
Well, as a proctologist would examine, and I can assure you of one thing, Scott, and that is that even as we speak right now, CNN and ABC News' investigative unit and the New York Times and the Washington Post are very busy making sure that no one discusses anything like that in the newsroom. They're corrupt institutions. They're institutionally corrupt. The pond has been stocked with personally corrupt individuals who do not do their job, and therefore the proper function of a republic is at stake because the Fourth Estate is bought and paid for by the Democrat Party. And in fact, they don't even have to buy it or pay for it. They're just sleeping together, and they're fine with that. It's a merger of state and corporate power that we're witnessing between the Democrat Party and the media oligarchs, from Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post to the gang of miscreants at the New York Times and ABC News. Their chief anchor is a Clinton administration official, and Chunk Todd just moved from point A to point B. He's a former Democrat Hill staffer whose wife brings in millions of dollars from the Bernie Sanders campaign, and they never disclose that when he's interviewing Bernie Sanders. And, this is... There are a lot of things that investigative journalists should be looking into right now, Scott, but they don't, and
Chris,
they haven't been for years.
Their greatest power is what they choose not to report.
That's a fact. The greatest,
Somebody told me that.
The most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore, and they ignore a lot,
Yes.
don't they?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks. Love the show.
Thank you, Scott. Very good stuff. Love the Caligula reference. I think that's just great. As the Roman Empire was falling, and they had these horrible, terrible clowns as emperors on the way down, the Emperor Caligula, who ran a sexual circus, and it was rife with madness, appointed a horse to the Senate. At least that was his plan. Then he was assassinated. There was a lot of assassination going on at the time, too. Caligula, the Mad Emperor, the horse that almost became a senator. And Caligula's best friend was the horse, so he decided that his horse was loyal, so he was going to make the horse a member of the Senate. And the Democrat Party has pretty much reached that point. The most famous story that Caligula, his horse was called, what's it called? Insatius, and it was his favorite horse. So he was made consul to the Roman Senate, and it's a story that may or may not be fable, but it is a story about the age of the crumbling of the Roman Empire. And the left is here. They are the barbarians inside the gates. And they have the Democrat Party and the media, and Western civilization is teetering on the brink. And the left is here to shove us over the edge because they're anti-capitalist, they're anti-freedom, they're anti-American, and they pretty much own the Democrat Party and the media. These forces. Now let's get back to Diane Feinstein, because the 90-year-old senator passed away today. It doesn't come as a shock. She's been unwell for quite some time and frail for quite some time. She was not one of the real villains of the modern Democrat Party by any stretch of the imagination, I think. She was a run-of-the-mill, go along to get along, vote for everything the Democrats want, rubber stamp vote in the Senate. She was elected to the Senate in 1992, and they called that the Year of the Woman. She had been the mayor of San Francisco, California, of course, and San Francisco was still a pretty cool place when she was mayor. It hadn't gone completely mad, but now it has, of course. And now the Democrat Party is completely mad. Now let me get to this. Michael Piercy, looking around this morning, found some great video and audio of a bunch of leftists using children as cannon fodder. And I think it's probably a teacher. You get these radical left-wing teachers that want to teach your boy that he's a girl and your girl that she's a boy. And They sexualize your kindergarten kid with LGBTQIAA plus curriculum and all this crazy stuff. The Democrats are pulling kids out of school to go march for Black Lives Matter, and they couldn't be bigger hypocrites because they don't really believe Black Lives Matter. There's only one or two Black Lives Matter every 5 years or so matter to the left because they can use them to create violent political movements where they sack and plunder and steal and loot and burn and overturn police cars and steal Louis Vuitton bags and loot lemon clothing and all that good stuff. But here is a pretty interesting moment. In 2019, February, so about 4.5 years ago now, and a teacher brought a bunch of little school children after brainwashing them and indoctrinating them, brought them into Senator Diane Feinstein's office on Capitol Hill, where they decided to occupy because they're brainwashing the little zombies, and the left is. And, got to remember always what Vladimir Lenin said, right? Give us your child for 4 years, and the seeds I have planted will never be uprooted. Give me your child for 8 years, and it'll be a Bolshevik for life. The Democrats are following that Lenin program, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, a.k.a. Lenin, the Bolshevik revolutionary. And here's Senator Diane Feinstein in her office being invaded in 2019, February, about 4.5 years ago. And the school children are being used by some radical left-wing extremist calling herself a teacher because the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And again, this is 4 years ago, so start the clock there.
We are trying to ask you to vote yes on the Green New Deal.
Please.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Oh, please.
We have our own Green New Deal.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this
put
doesn't get turned
ourselves-
around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these
Guess what?
consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
You know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway.
And your
I don't
children.
respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing.
Oh, you don't know what you're doing. These little children know what they're doing. And the teachers know what they're doing. Give us the child for 8 years and it will be a Bolshevik for life. They know what they're doing. This is what they do.
I hear what you're saying, but we're the people who voted you. You're supposed to listen to us. That's
Who voted you?
your job.
How old
I'm
are you?
16. I
Well,
can't
you didn't vote for me.
Well, she,
Then you-
she voted.
It doesn't matter. We're the ones going to be impacted.
This is what they use the children as cannon fodder for the cause. Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. Vladimir Lenin.
I'm trying to do the best I can, which was to write a responsible resolution.
Any plan that doesn't
has-
take bold,
Okay.
transformative action is not going to be what we need.
Well, you know better than I do.
don't
So
you
I think one day you should run for the Senate.
Great.
And then you do it your way.
But by that
But in the
time,
meantime,
there's
I
going to be
just,
a big problem.
I
We
just
have a
won a
letter
big
for you.
election.
And then the teacher detonated her suicide vest, and it was very tragic. Everyone was killed. Or is that the one that self-immolated on the steps of the Supreme Court? You're a Democrat Party. And good for Senator Diane Feinstein. You're 16 years old. You didn't vote for me. I've got my own Green New Deal. I've been doing this for a long time. Your children, I'll tell you, rather than you telling me. Good for Senator Diane Feinstein. Now, will Gavin Newsom appoint a horse? Whereas Diane Feinstein was, she just died. I don't want to, but isn't she the one that got the letter from fake Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and launched the lynch mob against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, which was all complete BS, completely phony, put the country through the madness. And maybe the Chinese spy she had on staff in San Francisco wrote it to her. And then during the confirmation hearing of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, she attacked her Catholicism, right, with the, what was that crazy line that she used?
When you read your speeches, the conclusion one draws is that the dogma lives loudly within you.
The dogma lives loudly within you.
That's of concern.
That's of concern. You might be Catholic or something. That could be a problem. Maybe we should sic the FBI on Catholics across the country and make Deutschland über alles the new anthem of the United States. The dogma lives loudly within you. That was a big line. And the Democrats were outside looting, but the dogma lives loudly. That was an anti-Catholic slur. And then the Christine Blasey Ford lynching of Justice Brett Kavanaugh was being driven largely by Diane Feinstein, if I remember that correctly, that she got the original letter from the, pixelated, to be generous, Christine Blasey Ford, starting that whole thing. That, I don't know, some year, I can't remember what year, at somebody's house, I can't remember whose house, and, maybe he was handing out red Solo cups, and maybe he shouldn't be allowed to be on the Supreme Court because, Democrats might start self-immolating on the steps of the Supreme Court. Your Democrat Party. And the child abuse of the Green New Deal, we voted you in. And Dianne Feinstein looks at the child and says, you're a 16-year-old, aren't you? Yeah. So are you voting? Because I know you're a Democrat, but isn't that amazing? These people. Can you say these people? Man, oh man. That's crazy. Completely nuts. I see, and I hope you'll hang in there. We have somebody in the line that actually worked with Senator Dianne Feinstein. And hang in there. Because, we're a Washington-based show. These things happen. A lot of politics going on around here. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's true. And we got that, and Joe Biden accusing half America of being extremists and a danger to democracy, while saying out of the other side of his mouth that he's a uniter who works across the aisle, and then he threw a Molotov cocktail at himself.